have to tell you the big ridiculousness that we're dealing with when it comes to Great Britain and the unbelievable, like their country, it's sliding into despotism. They don't have free speech there anymore. They don't have the freedom to assembly anymore. And their major boroughs all have mayors who are Muslim, every single one of them. This is a tiny island nation that used to be the largest empire in the world that is now under attack from internal, unfettered immigration. So you'd think with huge problems like that, they would keep their comments to themselves, but instead, they seem obsessed with taking on the nation state of Israel is currently engaged in a war to defend their very right to exist after the October 7th massacre, the terror attack that was the largest hit on their country since the Holocaust. They never lost that many people in a day at any point in time since the Holocaust. So what do we have going on in Gaza? Well, it's a propaganda effort led by Hamas. Hamas wants to convince everyone in the West that the Israelis are starving the Palestinians to death, when in reality, it's Hamas that's starving these people. When the aid gets delivered, Hamas makes the Palestinian people pay them for the free aid. So it doesn't matter if it's airdropped in, if it's brought in by truck into one of the routes that's open, the trade routes. It doesn't matter who sends it, whether it's Great Britain or Syria or Jordan or Qatar or the United States. Hamas uses it to make money so they can buy guns and equipment to make rockets because they're a paramilitary terror organization and they don't have a way of making money otherwise. So now we have this big story. It was a blockbuster story that came out. The New York Times had this image on the cover of their newspaper. It was also all over their website, where they showed the image of this child with their spine was visible, a starving baby held by the mother. And they said that it was a result of Israel refusing to allow aid into the Palestinian enclave. Now, that's not true. In fact, there's tons of aid there, but they can't get the aid from the pallets where it's being stored into the hands of the Gazans because of a multitude of factors. So, retired British Special Forces Colonel Richard Kemp disputed the claims because he's on the ground there. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is not committing war crimes, nor is Israel. Take a look.
I'm Richard Kemp here at one of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's distribution centres inside Gaza. You will have heard a lot of propaganda about violent attacks in and around the GHF sites here. It's all lies generated by Hamas in order to discredit the GHF. The Hamas hate the GHF because the GHF delivers aid directly into the hands of the Gazan people without being seized by Hamas and sold at a profit. Very many of the people behind me here have told me it's the first time they've ever received free aid. So don't believe the propaganda that's been churned out by Hamas and amplified by too much of the international and national media.
So what are the facts? Well, take a look at this New York Times cover story. That turns out the baby that's being shown there is not starving because of a lack of food. The baby is actually suffering from a very difficult medical condition. So, after running this story, where the images they showed are of the rest of the family not starving at all, only the baby is starving. So, how could it be that the baby would be starved, but none of the other family members were? That's the first red flag, but the New York Times didn't pick up on it, nor did other news and media organizations who picked up the story and ran with it. It turns out Tuesday night they had to revise the story. They learned after further investigation that the child has an underlying medical issue that affects his muscle development. The revision removed the mother's quote from the story saying that Mohammed had been born healthy and added context from the baby's doctor. Though it did not back away from the other reporting in the story, Gazans are dying of starvation, including its claim that the child was suffering from malnutrition due to food shortages, which is just not true. There's amazing amounts of rice and other durable goods that have been delivered. And I want you to take a look. Here's the picture. Durable goods that have been delivered that are behind a fence that the Gazans can't actually get to. So what is the problem here? Well, first of all, shoddy reporting. They're always on the left and in the mainstream corporate media saying things like, bloggers don't actually have credentials. Bloggers don't actually go in, the new media journalists who, because they're jealous of the new media seat at the White House press briefing room, they say that those people don't actually do the heavy lifting of investigative journalism. Well, where's the investigative journalism here? Google Earth images show this aide sitting on a tarmac, fenced off and inaccessible by the Gazans. So why not do a simple internet search? Why not have reporters? Most of these news media organizations have reporters on the ground in the Middle East who can travel to Gaza and see for themselves. Why not fact check the mother's report that the baby was starved? Anything is better than them aiding a terror group and launching a propaganda campaign against Israel that is destroying their ability to operate safely and end the war and get the hostages back. We'll bring you the straight skinny here on Salem News Channel.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.